Hello, this is Dr. Infinity, and welcome to the Trough.
Yes, you know what it is, don't you, boy? Shall I tell you? It's the least I can do.
If you don't know what the Trough is, this is a series that I started on my channel where I read and review indie authors and some of their works. This week, we're going to be talking about Barbarians of the Storm. This is by Rob Rhymes, and there are 5 books in this series. And I saw this series on Twitter, and I've been meaning to check it out for a while. I'll have a link down below where you can check it out for yourself if you're interested. There's going to be full spoilers and everything going in. The series is a fast-paced pulp fantasy, and it's been described as like plays on like B movies and such. That's how I've seen it described. So I'm going to be covering all 5 books here and discussing what I liked and some of the criticisms I had. Do I recommend the series? If you like faster pacing, I would say I do recommend it, but there might be a little asterisk next to it. I would say you can check it out, like the first book, to see if that's for you. If you're not a fan of stuff, I guess, like Conan the Barbarian, I've only read some of Conan the Barbarian, the original stuff by Robert E. Howard. I plan on reading more sometime, but there's just a big stack of indie books in the way. It's definitely faster paced. I would say it's got some good sword and sorcery stuff going on there. And yeah, I do have some criticisms for it, but I would say you could check out book 1, see if it's for you. Anyways, I'm going to hop right into book 1. So again, spoilers for these books. I have the link down below if you want to check them out. Book 1, this is Dan the Destructor. The first page of book 1, we have this really nice description here. It's dark and the wind howls like a poison banshee. Snow and hail move almost sideways, covering the flat ground with an ivory slush as far as can be seen in the haunting blackness. Suddenly, there's an ominous electrical crackle in the air. This is good. I really like this. I really like setting the scene. We have nice concrete imagery. Very good stuff. I was very pleased with this going in. We have our feet firmly planted in this story. Dan, who's a bit of an overweight guy, he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt and he's wearing some cargo shorts, and he just kind of falls out of the sky, and he's in this fantasy world. And yeah, I like this. Right after that intro, we have Dan being introduced to Fenric. Fenric saves his life from this like saber-toothed cat, and Fenric goes on. This is a criticism that I have, and it's something that reoccurs throughout the series. This is Fenric talking. I fought them before, very tricky bastards. Ha. Not as tricky as Fenric, though. Very large beasts breathe heavy and shake the ground. I think it's fine right there if we just kind of leave it there. Even when they're trying to sneak, I can sense them, but I've been told I have this weird connection to animals, like I can feel their presence and intent, like a sort of tingle on the back of my neck. Doesn't work if a beast is magical, though. It's just kind of it's a lot of information up front when we just met Fenric, and later on we have Dan and Fenric. They fight like this toad, and they also fight like this snake in the Kongan or Kogan. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've read like the first few of the books. I just finished the series the last week, but it's like I think you could have used like one of those fights or something, just to like Fenric to go like, for Dan to be like, hey, how'd you know that thing was about to attack? It's like, oh, I have this weird thing, you know? Because then it'd be like a little more in context. Anyways, so Fenric is trying to defeat this wizard, Shakon Kazeth, who I don't really like. I don't think he's a great villain, because it just feels like he's something that we're trying to brush away, because he's trying to get this magic MacGuffin thing, and he has his 2 scheming lieutenants. There is General Bale, and then there's Erzulian. I'm going to mispronounce just about everything in this video, but there's like her and him, and she's absolutely like plotting to betray him because she has some other stuff going on, and we just kind of know that Shakon has to just be kind of swept away, so he's not like super important, or yeah, there's not too much there. It just feels like a little obstacle for us, right? Like a speed bump. So there's that, and Dan and Fenric, they're racing together to go to this place to stop him from acquiring this vial of like power. Along the way, we get some more stuff about Dan had this woman he was trying to patch things up with before he got teleported to this world, and her name was Elizabeth, and there's some stuff going on there of like Elizabeth being like this legendary hero, and there's like this connection with Dan. So we have that like percolating in the background. I was a little confused by, because it's Bale asking Urzulin, what do you think of my army? Isn't this very impressive? And Urzulin just stares at the army while it's comprised of several dozen soldiers. And I'm like, that's really not much, right? Like, I'm thinking like less than 100 for sure. Like, I don't know, like 40, 60 guys? I don't know. So I don't know if the like several dozen like elite soldiers, like that would be more impressive. But just like these books are a quick read. Like the first book is only 121 pages. That's it. So it's very fast, but there's a lot packed in here. You know what I mean? And we have the big final fight at the end, and the big final fight is Dan and Fenric, and they have the big ass bitch or whatever. It's like this war machine. Them, we have General Bale, we have Shakon Kazoth, we have the giant dead army, we have Frank Murdoch and the Armageddon or Agamemnon people in this giant airship. We have this old primordial Lovecraft god who's also there, and they're all fighting and everything, and it's just, there's a lot going on, and it feels a bit like a giant mashup of stuff, and like some of it is like kind of fun and cool, but it also felt a bit like a spectacle to me. Like we have characters here who we're supposed to root for, like our Dans and our Fenrics, but they're just drowned out because of everything that's going on, right? Oh, we also have the talking gorillas there. The Kongans are also there. One thing with the battle, they're firing some missiles, right? Fenric fires the fourth missile, also to the same result. The third missile to the same result. The fifth missile to the same result. I would have liked a bit more of word choice there. Just spice that up a little bit, because it just repeats too much here. Fenric asking the soldier Pallas, are you related to blank? And then we get this little backstory dump about Sential Pallas, and this just feels like too much information, and there's just so much going on because we have all this stuff fighting and clashing together that, hey, here's this little side character, by the way, here's some of their backstory. It feels just a bit out of place because we're also in the middle of a battle and all that. Like that could have been done at like the end of the fight or something. But anyways, the fight's over and everything. And what we have left is Urzulin. She gets the MacGuffin. The wizard we don't really care about because he's not like a really interesting villain. He's dead. He's swept away. And then we have like right before the epilogue, she's formed like a new cabal of villains. We have the Necro King. We have this White Goblin, Zulog. I'm not sure. And the Black Iron. I don't know if you could have started this book with the Black Iron, Zulog, and the Necro King and Urzulin all working together or something. I'm not really sure. And Bale wasn't much for me either. I'll talk about Bale later on. Yeah, I thought book one was decent. It's just I feel like there's too large of a cast of characters. This is something I'll bring up at a few points in the video. And the pacing, I think the pacing can work, but we need a tighter focus, I guess I would say. We need a bit more of a tighter focus. On to book two. Book two is Atomic Beasts and Where to Kill Them. In book two, Dan and Fenric, they're going off to try to find the scientist that's supposed to know about Elizabeth, right? We have that going on. We have this army led by Zolog that's attacking Court. We have Killer and Frank and Marith, they're dealing with some goblins in a cave. We have Urzulin going to this tower and like interdimensional demon space. We also have General Theron. They're doing that. Fenric and Dan are also like in the middle of this civil war thing with this archipelago, and it feels just like whiplash at time where we're just going back and forth between all this stuff. Another thing, we get introduced to a new character, Razazorok, page 34. And he's this demon guy. He is with some other demons called the Groganox. I think that's what they're called. But they were like all evil and bad, but they found a stone of sentience, and these have popped up throughout in the first book and also here, and it made them like have empathy and like more human emotions. So now they live, I guess, on this planet. I will say though, even though like the stone is like, hey, you can trust these people, I still think this is like a heavy kind of info dump, like right off the bat. Because we're just really meeting them like a page or two before, and he's giving us like all these details about like the inner workings of hell. And I think this could have been spaced out a little more. Like all this information, I don't think is like bad, but I think I could have used it spaced out a bit more. A problem I also had was on page 34 we have Razorok, and then on page 44 we have a talking sword, and this talking sword is called and Mordu, right? He also joins their little party, and it's just now I kind of wanted it to be Fenric and Dan to build them up a little more, to get more of like their dynamic, and now we've added 2 whole new characters into this. I think maybe you could have added one, like the demon or the sword, but I think you have to pick one. I think doing both is biting off more than you can chew. And we also get introduced to Seawolf, who has a ship that is like intelligent. It has like a stone of sentience as well, right? We get some good like interesting stuff going on. Urzulin, she's working for the Durir, or I'm probably mispronouncing that, but she's working for the Durir, who are like aliens that have like kind of made the world and stuff. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. She's doing stuff like that. Razorok knowing how to turn into a human just all of a sudden because the stone gave him that power is a little convenient. That's a little too convenient for me. I would have liked that. I don't know. Maybe they work on it or something. I don't know. Another kind of problem I had with this one is that the Frank and crew, like him, Killer, and Marith, who are out in the Goblin Caves, should not have been there. Or maybe they needed to be cut from the book kind of altogether. Or they should have been put at court with the general and like the siege and the drakes and everything going on there, so we can have more solid scenes, so we're not just diving back and forth between all this stuff, you know. I think those could have been like put together. I don't really see like why Frank and Marith couldn't have been at court as well, because like some people survived there, so I don't know. I feel like, yeah, they could have done that. The story after the book, we get a lot about Fenric's backstory and like the murder of his father. So it's like there's cool stuff like that. We also know that Fenric has a brother somewhere out there, you know, and like that's all fine and good. So yeah, there's some good stuff in here. Like I like the Urzulin. She's probably one of my favorite characters so far. But I think we're just pulled in too many directions, I guess I would say. Oh, I did screw up. When I was reading these books, I read them 1, 2, 3. It's supposed to go 1, 2, Eyes and All Shadows and Other Stories, 3, and then Fenric 1984. So I screwed up, and that does matter because it did give some characters in book 3 like more backstory, more lore, stuff like that. So I didn't get that until after I read Eyes and All Shadows, so that's my bad. So I'm still going to go in the order that I read them, so I am going to talk about book 3 before Eyes and All Shadows. So in book 3, on page 7, we have Dan and Fenric. They're together, right? And they're being attacked by the one monster thing. On page 9, we have the Black Iron and Urzulin. On page 11, we have Frank and Marith. On page 13, we have Zolog, and it's a lot of scenes very fast. It's a lot of scenes very fast, and we're cutting between point of view very fast. I think you could probably juggle these 4. I guess you could do that, but I would want like 10, 15 pages with this little group, and then we move on to something else. And then we're doing 10, 15 pages there, and then we can bounce back or over here, whatever. But when we're doing like 1 page or 2 pages and then we're just cutting back and forth, and they do have longer chunks later on in the book, but I still think it's a bit too rapid. I did like this as a nice little parallel where the Black Iron is carrying Urzulin around and Frank is carrying Marith to safety. And it's like, that's nice. That's a good little parallel there. I enjoy that. More information on the Dreer, where the Dreer apparently serve something else. They're devils. They're real devils. They're devils as old as the universe. This is information from this talking sword. Kind of makes me feel a bit like the Dreer are going to be like Shakon Kazeth, like they're meant to be swept away. And I don't know if there should be something more than Dreer, like maybe. But everyone's already like discussing, we haven't even really met the Dreer, but everyone's already discussing the things above the Dreer. And Urzulin's plan is trying to bring them to the planet to try to destroy them as retribution. You know, they're trying to like bring ultimate justice or something like that, right? So that's kind of their plan, but you know, the real plan is to destroy the people above that, right? The Dreer are kind of gonna be swept away, and I don't know, we'll see, right? Vasila, who's Fenric's woman, she's like a lich now. We have the siege at Agamemnon, where one wizard, Apharem, he dies, and I just wish we knew him more, because like I like him dying. It's kind of cool, you know. I like that he kind of just gets bodied by Cataris. Like, I think that's neat, but I just wish we knew him more so it was more impactful. Like, same with Frank, and Frank dying. I wish because we have people that like talk about Frank, but we don't have too much time with Frank. You know what I mean? Oh, and the one city of Court is destroyed, and King Bruxor and the queen are killed, and it's like, that doesn't really affect me. You know what I mean? That doesn't really do anything for me because I don't really know these guys. So, yeah, it didn't really have much of an impact on me because, unfortunately, I didn't read Eyes and All Shadows first. But if I did, you know, Bruxor does have a short story in there, so I probably would have cared more. So that's really my bad. I think that would have had a bit more of an impact for me. Oh, yeah. Some other stuff with book 3. I don't know if, like, Bale could have worked here better, because he's just kind of like a villain in book 1, and then he makes a brief appearance here. And I don't know, like, he's a lieutenant of Shakon Kazeth that after the wizard dies, he goes off to become a petty warlord on this archipelago. And because we just have like this atomic wizard that we don't really have a connection to at all. And Bale, who has like some connection with like the demon stuff. Razaruk also, like, he's a demon obviously, so maybe there'd be a little something there, you know, because they both have a tie to the demonic realm. I don't know. Maybe that would have worked more because I don't really care about Bale. Oh, and obviously, and at the very end of the book, we have Bram Tyr is back, you know, and I didn't really like that. You know, I think it's interesting, we'll see, but I'm not sure if I really like it because I think it adds to an already like pretty stuffed plot if we're bringing back, you know, characters that we assume were dead. But one thing I'm kind of interested in is if in later books we're going to see like, because Urzulin, she's worked as an agent for the Dreer, but are we going to see like other agents to the Dreer, like someone as like a counter to Urzulin? You know what I mean? Like, I think that'd be kind of cool to see. What I was kind of hoping is we would like kind of whittle down our kind of encroaching cast of characters a bit, but it seems like we're kind of at the same, if not we've added a few, and I think that's just kind of a snowball kind of problem where it's like if the cast keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and we have to divide time and pages between all these kind of people, some are going to feel left out or we're just going to be pulled in too many directions to have a strong focus. Anyways, those are the 3 like core books. There's Eyes in All Shadows. I read this out of order. That's my bad, but I like this. This is a collection of short stories, and I thought this was great. I thought this was really good. I think this is probably my favorite or like second favorite of the Barbarians of the Storm books, just because for me it's what I would say is a more manageable cast. We have these just tight, focused, short stories and just a limited number of characters and stuff like that, and I think this is pretty strong. This is some pretty good stuff. Some of my favorites in Eyes of All Shadows is Cult of Nine Sons. I thought this was great, like really, really great stuff. We have Fenric. He's going to go save this girl from being sacrificed to this cult and stuff. And he meets this one giant Huckrag. And, we don't know too much about him. He's just this giant. He gives him like access to a magic armory. And he just says, the Nephilim will always find you, to the 9 sons. And then he just disappears at the end. And I'm like, that's fucking cool. That's just a nice little short story there. A little story of Bruxor, which I wish I read this before book 3, because then I think I would have cared a little more. And we also have Life and Death's Exhale, which is a short story of Marith as a little girl. Very good as well. I really like it with the 3 crows and the guy, and all that stuff is really great. I really like it. Focused. I will say one part is there's just a lot of information conveyed all at once where it's like, I think this could have just been broken up a little bit. I think this could be just some of the information about her father and their debt. I think that could have been broken up a little bit. The Cult of 10. Some of the mystery of Huckrag and being a Nephilim and all that stuff. That was a little lost because it gets explained. And I think sometimes less is more. Leaving it up to kind of a mystery where it's we know some of it but not all of it. I think that's works, but I still think it's fine. I still think it's a pretty decent story. And then the huge story is about Urzulin and her backstory. And at first, when I was reading it, I just thought that Urzulin was actually Elizabeth, and there's going to be something going on with that. But after reading the backstory and everything, I'm like, okay, she's not Elizabeth. But I did really think that at first when I started reading. Fenric, 1984, and this is probably tied with Eyes and All Shadows for me between the best that the series has to offer. Fenric being teleported back. This is after the events in book 3, where he's back in 1984, right? We have him helping some police officers try to bring down this cartel in Florida. And just overall, we have good humor. We have a tight plot. We have a tight cast. Oh, yeah, some of the humor. Jean is talking to her captain. Look in my eyes. You know that I'm as sober as a nun right now. We picked up a nun on dope last week, Gina. Captain McRae retorts good stuff. We have also some blatant fan service, which I loved. This is great. About Fenric watching Conan the Barbarian. Between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Ares, there was an age undreamed of. This is great. It's just fan service, and it's good. I like it. I like it. It works here. We have, the scene when they're at the wrestling event. It's that's also great. It's just a nice little character building scene. It's funny. It works. It's good. I enjoy it. So the brother to the cartel guy, this is Cameron. I did not know that Cameron actually just means shrimp in Spanish, and it's not his real name. So I thought that was good. Because I just thought it was all right, this is Cameron. One of his brother's henchmen is called Arturo, and this confused me a little bit. Cameron steps in front of Pepe and unloads his pistol into Arturo's chest, but Pepe doesn't react to this really. I went through the next few pages a couple of times to make sure, but Cameron does not really have a reaction to Arturo's death, and I think he really should have. So that was a little odd to me. And it started to burst at the seams a little bit where they're having the shootout with the cartel, and then ninjas show up because it's 2 drug empires fighting each other. And I'm like, all right. This is a little much. Let's try to rein it in a little bit. But it doesn't get as crazy as kind of all the stuff that was going on the first book, you know what I mean? Gina being Elizabeth's mom, and it's interesting because I guess that means Dan had a relationship with Fenric's daughter. I don't know, I guess Fenric's his father-in-law, or I guess he's not his father-in-law, but there's a weird relationship there. I guess we'll get into that. And Fenric is teleported home, and then we get a little short story of Killer at the end, right? So there's all that. The books I really like are Fenric 1984 and Eyes and All Shadows. I think the other books, they have definitely elements in there that I like. I kind of like agents of the Durir, you know, and Urzulin and all that stuff. I think this is all like neat, but there's issues with pacing. There's issues with our cast becoming too large and unwieldy and just shifting point of view too rapidly. I think these are problems, right? I think the short stories fix a lot of these problems. I think Fenric 1984 fixes a lot of these problems, and I can see where it's like, this is cool, man. This is like tight. This is focused. I really enjoy those. Not that I don't like the others, and I will say that I will read more of the series. I just want to kind of see how things go, how things turn out. You know, I'm interested in it. I liked reading them. I don't regret reading them. And, you know, check them out if you're interested. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this Welcome to the Trough. Next up on my Trough docket is A Mandate of Sword and Railgun. I also might review a movie in between this video and that review. So, I don't know. It's kind of like a weird Spanish sci-fi movie. We'll see. You know, I'll see if it's any good to do a review on it. But anyways, I'm going to say thanks for watching, and Dr. Infinity out.
Don't leave me here alone! Not without anyone to hate! Ah!